Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena,
I'm Llama.
and today we're talking about some Warhammer stuff. Obviously, um, more of the same from last week, I would say. We've got 11th edition still ramping up. Lots
New
of
edition. Yep.
faction previews, and we've got some base rules for units that are being changed for this edition. Each call it alliance, right, has their own like faction pack released with some of their new detachments and some of their updates, things like that. So we got all those this last week. It was Space Marines got their own divergent chapters, Chaos Xenos, and then Imperium all got their own faction packs. So we can actually start seeing what it's going to look like. I was kind of pleasantly surprised that some of the changes were very good. I mean, I expected them to be bad, but some of them were pretty solid.
Well, and it's like indexes without indexes. It was like every faction gets the same amount of stuff to start the new edition, and your codexes are still good, and then they're going to adjust whatever verbiage or something doesn't carry over. But yeah, it looks like every faction got a couple of new detachments.
Yep. We did see that the detachments for specific chapters were very similar to the other detachments that they had in the book, but they are specific to the chapters of Space Marines. So like the Boltery one was specifically like, hey, if you bring this, you have to be in Imperial Fists. Like you have to bring. Here's the benefit you get if you bring Torgaradon. Like there were things tied to it. Raven Guard went the same way. Is if you bring this, no other units can be Raven Guard. You have to do this, and it's very similar to what they had back probably in 8th edition. Outside of a certain distance, you've got stealth and all that. Sort of benefits around bringing their chapter master specifically. You get an extra bonus benefits and stuff. We again kind of get into that realm of, are they balanced against one another? Is each chapter like, is there clearly going to be one best one, kind of
There always
thing?
is, right?
And there always is. I mean, these are, I think, more about flavor than competitive viability.
Yeah.
Like Phobos units are only so good, and you only have so many options. You're not going to be able to kill everything in the game with just Phobos and Scout units. And so making an army around that is just not as competitive, like I said, competitively viable as like, hey, this one's all about tanks and dreadnoughts.
Well, and I wonder
can kill everything.
Well, I wonder if that's why they tried to focus on these different sizes of detachments for modularity, where it's like, well, I want to play a lightly armored, highly mobile, themed Marine army, right? I want to play Raven Guard or White Scars, or even my own homebrew chapter who's like Desert Marines or something, and but you're right. If you play all Phobos and Scouts and bikes, you might have trouble when you come up against a really tough army like Death Guard or Custodes or Imperial Knights. So what do you do? And so it's like, well, maybe if you have now this option to buy some other detachment that features Terminators or features tanks, now you can make an army that does it and still stay in your theme. I know this much. So I taught a class at a store this weekend, yesterday, in fact. And when we got to some spots after I would like provide a little bit of instruction and then turn them loose to do it a little bit, and I'd walk around and look at the progress, a lot of the people were talking about the new 40K rules. Most of the chatter was pretty positive, which now it was just a local example, right? That's just like anecdotal, but a lot of people seem to like the direction 11th edition is headed. They like some of the changes. Like you and I talked about last week, it feels like some things were simply made cleaner, which is all it needed. Some things were simplified where they didn't need to be complicated, or they removed a math problem or some bookkeeping element. And then that modularity of being able to customize your list a little bit more and yet still stay on theme. It's got people kind of excited. I think immersion is big, and while people want cleaner rules, people didn't like just having circles for objectives in 40K. They really didn't. And this terrain thing, people seem to be really on board with. So it sounds like that trying to make both the casual and the tournament player and everybody in between happy, while it's never going to be possible to nail it, I think I've heard mostly good chatter so far, and some of these things that you're talking about, I think. Do we have points cost yet, or do we just have the rules?
No,
the
I
rules
believe
have
it's
been
just the
updated already,
rules.
but
No.
yeah.
And it's like limited stuff, right? Like it's stuff that's not like the data sheets we're seeing are things that are sort of newer, sort of maybe not in the books, right? And so they've gotten updated ahead of time.
I know, like was Dr. Gutzmek, for example, his data sheet might have been meant for whichever edition, but there was a big Warhammer Open tournament where someone used him. He was allowed to be played, and that guy's a monster right now. But this could be that fun between editions time where GW is like, whatever. But it was like he was playing against some Dark Angels player, and it was like that dude eliminated. He killed the lion. He killed a bunch of Deathwing. Like Wazdaka was but we don't know if that's what he's going to look like in 11th, or if he'll be able to do the same thing. But yeah.
And I think we've seen a couple of examples of things people were afraid of, right? With like aircraft. Aircraft don't have a movement or a OC characteristic, right? Because they can never contest objectives because they zip on the battlefield and then leave because they're aircraft. So they don't have a move characteristic because it doesn't matter how fast they move. It's more than the board, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like some of the flyers that used to be aircraft now are aircraft, but they have movement characteristics, right? So like they'll be able to switch modes to stay on the board.
I think the
instead of
Storm
flying
Talon
off the
can
board.
do that. Can do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was looking at the Manta, and so like some of them will be able to like hover and stay on the board and not zip off, like have to zip off. They could stay because like how does a transport work? Any other way, right? Like how is a Storm Raven going to work? I don't know. Like that's a weird one. Or like I wonder how. Special rules and exceptions and stuff is like the Necron
you have like
flyers.
you also have the Necron one, the Crescent roll, right?
Yeah,
Super
that's a weird one.
There's a transport version.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Well, I guess we'll see. Might be the case of like, oh, if you don't have a movement characteristic, you fly too fast to stay on the board. But if you do have a move, you don't have to leave the board. That kind of thing.
And then you're essentially just a vehicle, right? Like,
right.
But
yeah. I
do like that they're basic. It's funny is those flying models are all on bases, which I wish tanks were on bases. That's another, but they've got all these flying models on bases, but they're essentially saying like for rules purposes, those bases can't get in the way of the game. Like they're not allowing players using these supersonic flyers to have that model get in the way or block firing lanes or something. Like
right. There's no battlefield presence, right? Because they are up here, right? They're flying up above the battlefield. You don't get to control objectives with it. It doesn't block line of sight. It doesn't get in the way of movement, like that kind of stuff. Which good, that makes sense because there were editions of the game where that did happen. One was like, why? Why is if a plane is flying, above the battlefield and it's casting a shadow, why can I not stop where that shadow is?
Yep.
The briefest moment that the shadow is there.
Yeah. And so now the base essentially functions as your measurement point, reference point, and that's it. Which that's good. I think that's cleaner. I know I'm not a big fan of the flyers anyway. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but I think this is an okay way to handle it. But like you, I do need to see more of the rules because right now it seems a little weird, but I haven't read through all the core rules yet. They are available now. People can get them from the community website, but we did see that we're getting finally our updated rules for Age of Sigmar, the General's Handbook, the annual update. And it sounds like it's supposed to be massive. They've shown us very little of what it's actually bringing.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously it's a new season, comes new rules, comes new battle plans, which did a couple, a new type of sort of battlefield mechanic. Like last time we had a book, it was all about growth and thickets and objectives from terrain were overgrown. You could hide in them and things like that. This one's all about like kind of melee and monsters and rage and the fiery nature of the Realm of Fire. So like they're all kind of based on that of like being too angry to take damage and shrugging off damage and your rage infecting your enemy and making them furious. I don't know. It's very weird.
It's the Incredible Hulk pre-Professor Hulk. That's what it is. Yeah. But
there are some things that were in that last General's Handbook that we kind of got used to that are potentially going away. Things like the denying line of sight, right? By your units hiding. You can't be targeted by shooting. So like shooting was kind of really gimped down last edition, and some units that were kind of squishy relied on hiding inside of terrain to protect them as they got where they needed to go. And we're going to see kind of a big shift for some of those units, right? The new Skaven assassins, I think, were built with the last General's Handbook in mind. They can scurry around amongst terrain that's overgrown and objectives that are overgrown and they can't be targeted. As soon as they get shot at, they evaporate, right? 6-up save is 6-up is nothing.
Nope.
And so units similar to those, I think, are maybe going to have a hard time this edition, or you need to bring them in specifically an allied cog fort or something to deliver them. Or we'll see things like alternate versions of these units, right? Because we did have the Scourge of Gyron units that kind of supplemented some of those kind of weaker units that maybe didn't have a role in the current General's Handbook season. And so they were given a new version that could play a little bit better. Maybe we'll see something similar to that in, won't be called the Scourge of Akshi, but maybe something like that, or we'll get an alternate version of some of those units that will interact with this edition, this season of the edition better. We'll see. We don't know. That's the issue, right? Is we've heard so little about like what of the actual details of what's going to happen besides new season. You know?
Yeah, I've only heard a few individuals who seem to be in the know, but only share whatever. But it sounds like this is going to be a massive change to the rules and what the meta is going to look like. We've seen so very little, though. And then GW did that sort of like cheeky little, some of the stuff from Scourge of Gyron will still be like, what does that mean?
But exactly. What do you
are some of those units staying, or what's going on? Yeah.
I do feel like some of those Scourge of Gyron units have become sort of a staple to enable some of those armies to work right now. I just maybe
some of them are just straight
I don't know.
Better, like not even stylistically different. Like Abraxia's is very different from her original form, or like the Rodigus, which gives you 2 ways to play. But like some of them are just straight up better than their stock version, and so I wonder if they're going to decide to just keep that going for some of those, or make it the permanent choice. Which, again, I feel bad for those people who rely on the printed book, because now your unit's invalid. Like, no, that's not what that does anymore. Yeah, well.
But it does shake things up. It is kind of like losing a unit from your army, right? Like kind of a little bit. So I don't know. It's edition. I mean, it's almost like a mini edition change because it does change things so much. So it's like it's a lot to get used to. For a lot of people, like they don't like things changing, you know, and you kind of have to get used to that. It's unfortunate, but and it's personally, I have enough stuff that whatever changes happen, I've got the things to pivot.
Usually, whatever army I participate in, I own way too much of all of it, so I can make an adjustment. But like, so it's interesting is with how fast we get information nowadays. A lot of people don't, and since we've been in the smartphone era, a lot of people don't realize how much time has passed since insert whatever. People sometimes will talk about the way Games Workshop does rules updates or things like that, like it's recent. And it was like, well, no, they've been doing it this way now for like 10 years. Like, shouldn't we accept this as the norm? They update things quickly and frequently now. And But you're right. Some people don't like change. And I don't know. Sometimes they think the data sheet or the war scroll, respectively, are what needs to change about a unit. And sometimes Games Workshop's shown us that isn't the case. When they do these seasonal updates, like a chapter prover General's Handbook, all of a sudden the meta changes, even though no units have really changed. And the points might not even be that different for them. But the way the game is designed to play with the new season, all of a sudden a unit can shine where it didn't before. I don't know if that's the best solution. I think sometimes the units themselves just need fixed when they're bad, instead of trying to like staple all these other rules on to make them usable. But I don't know. What do you think they're going to lean that way, or do you think they're going to go back to like packing rules onto war scrolls and data sheets again?
I mean, I like
Back
the
and forth,
idea.
they really do.
Yeah, I mean, I like rules being on the units better, but
Okay.
I do want there to be common abilities that all the units share to be part of the faction. Yeah, I think I like it that way. So like I like every unit to be able to do something unique and have their own rule. I don't want just here's a stat block, 0 text. You have to rely on your book to do everything for you. Look at look at what they did to some of the Stormcast like characters and like the Battle Mage. Like
Yeah.
it was bad. They're the Lord Relictor, who got a new model, by the way, in this refresh, this edition. Got a brand new model. Went from the Skeletor guy to like the hooded, hammer banner. Like he got an updated model. His only special rule now is +1 to chanting. That's what it says. Right underneath this text, it's stat block +1 to chanting. The chant rolls.
Yep.
I was like, well, he had a unique prayer that let him, be flexible and do damage or heal. Like he could cast, unbind as a wizard once. Plus, then like I don't know, it's just weird. It's like, okay, so you gave him literally nothing. It's the same thing with the battle mages. They were like, hey, choose a spell, choose an endless spell they can cast. You get +1 to that specific spell when you try to cast it. No other rules.
Yeah,
Jeez,
that's even another thing that comes down to what we've talked about, where they designed the armies in phases, where like those first 5 or 6 just had nothing, no rules, rely on your book, rely on a season, whatever, to make your army do stuff.
Battle Mage was the most recent book, though, and he still got nothing.
That was the most recent, but he still got nothing.
Yeah. So it was weird. It's weird. I do like having every unit people do something unique. And for the most part, a lot of them do have at least something. But you end up in this kind of weird area where units that don't have special things that they do end up being the same as another unit that also does nothing special. But because they rely on the rules from the book, they both do exactly the same thing. Or you have something like a regiment of renown, or something like that, where you can take them as an ally. And it's like, okay, well, this unit uses the original unit, which relies on the book, but I don't get access to anything from the book, so this unit really doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything. Yep.
Or, that kind of thing. So like, I don't know. It was a weird balance that's kind of needed there.
I also don't like when a unit is useless unless they're in a very specific regiment/detachment, very specific army, very specifics. And then when you have all these hoops you jump through, now that unit suddenly is good. Otherwise, you can never take them, because then it feels like you have to build around them. And it's one thing to build around a hero character, a hero unit, but to build around like a troop, like I have to build this very specific list for my infantry to not suck. I don't know. I do wish some of them did more on their own. But then I also like more USRs, because you can actually have that be something a unit does. When you have more USRs and you just put those words on a unit, take advantage of those words. And then I like these seasonal changes that change like what your objectives are. I think they could do them all and stop designing the armies in phases, because that's one, I don't know, that's one issue we run into, where you get 6 armies that are super vanilla. So without updates to those armies, like Stormcast, like Skaven, like Slaves to Darkness, like some of those first ones, what can they look forward to with the new season, you think? Do you think they're going to lean into giving them a bunch of juice from this?
Well, I think with the GHB, we're also going to get a battle scroll, which is the seasonal update, quarterly slash biannually, biannual, semi-annually, whatever,
Semi-annual?
couple times a year, right?
Mhm.
Where they do a balance pass. The last couple they've done have actually been pretty impactful, where they have changed some stats, some keywords, some, give things other things. I'm hoping we see that as part of this General's Handbook, where
Okay.
some of those vanilla, some of those very basic early armies get something more than just, hey, you're not as good as everything else, so here's some point decreases. I really am hoping that they're going to get some sort of update to their tactics, some update to their lores. Give me a change to my actual army rules, right? Like the Skaven one was not designed around having Clan Eshin units in it, right? Because they didn't have them in the book. All they had
Right.
was one unit and a Vermin Lord. But they've kind of leaned more into that now. It's like, okay, we'll give them something that Eshin units can do then.
Right.
Because you've got your Master Clan, you have your Spell Lord, that's pretty much the only ones that can cast your spells. You've got the Clan Pestilence, which is able to, I guess, scryer spells too. But you've got Clan Pestilence, which can do all the prayer stuff. You've got like Clan Verminous, who is basically what the scurrying away and like getting out of combat for free and retreating like is all geared around. Clan Eshin is not considered in that. And so it's like, well, maybe add something to their battle tome that kind of helps them out a little bit, because honestly, like with how expensive they are, even if they have some damage output on them, with how expensive they are such a liability to bring. Even in their own specialized attachment that lets them move a little bit faster on turn 3, basically. Like it's they're just, I think they're too expensive for what they're supposed to do. Like even they're like, oh yeah, bombs on things and mortal wounds and stuff. It's like, but you had to have been in combat, survived combat, planted a bomb at the end of the turn, and then detonated the next turn. Like players don't want, like good players don't rely on a mechanic like that. It's like
3-turn mechanic. No.
If I touch you, if I'm making good fights, I should be killing the unit that I'm in combat with. Right? Yep. It shouldn't be something where like I rely. That's why, honestly, that's why Nurgle's previous army ability was was considered weak, because it was so slow. It was this like, hey, I hit you and I'm looking for cookies. I'm not doing immediate mortal wounds, but at the end of the turn, there's a chance that you blow up for some extra mortal wounds. It's like, that's just
yes. Well,
like,
yeah,
like,
and you usually had to have one of your units near them to make it. That was the the old disease mechanic was very much like that. Yeah,
it's weird. Yep. But so the Eshin units, well, they're not terribly fast. They're not that hard hitting, right? They're okay. They've got crit mortals, fine, whatever. But they're extremely squishy. They're expensive. They're not that fast. They mostly don't have any kind of defensive abilities or movement shenanigans, even like teleport or anything like that on their own. One of the units can grappling hook on a terrain and be set up on the other side of the piece of terrain. I mean, that's gives you a couple inches of movement, maybe, but you also have to be set up outside of a certain distance of the enemy. So it's marginally useful. I've already got null holes that let me do that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I can move a unit to a null hole and teleport outside of 9 already. So marginally useful. I don't know. It's weird. I'd like to see some actual stat changes. Same with things like Stormcast, Slaves of Darkness. I want to see more of an army rule. This will be the time to do that if they decide to do it.
Yeah, slaves are in that weird spot where it's like their stats are fine, but they have no special rules and no army rules.
Like the ability for them to do the dark apotheosis, right, to gain favor from their deity, was toned back so far that it's not even something you consider, because you have to nominate it at the beginning of the game. Your opponent knows who it is, and they can just kill that unit. Then
Yep.
your army roll is gone. If it were
Yep.
something where every unit can benefit from it, but maybe say you're only allowed to ascend to demonhood on one unit per army per game. Fine. If you're worried about all their little 80-point heroes somehow getting 9 points or whatever it is, and all ascending to demon princes, and all of a sudden the enemy's like 1,000 points up because their 10 heroes all gained 100 points of value. Oh, that's not fair to the enemy. It's like, if they get there, something is very, very wrong already.
Yep.
But like making it so that maybe once every 10 games you get a demon prince, it's not good enough of an army roll.
No.
It's just not. So maybe something like that, where like you can track Apotheosis points separately, but one unit can ascend, the other ones can still get rolling buffs or something from doing things. Something.
Yeah.
But like I said, having a good look at those armies and those kinds of things and giving them an overhaul, this would be the time to do it. New season, General's Handbook, new battle scroll is timed so that it should be about now. We'd love to see those kinds of changes.
And it could be, we've seen this before. It could be, since they announced the pre-order of it today, we're 3 weeks from getting it. We could end up with 2 to 3 weeks of them showing off something once per day of new rules coming to the game. Here's an update to a faction, et cetera, et cetera. I expect most factions will get something downloadable. Because now they don't have to worry about it conflicting with the launch of 40K 11th anymore. They staggered it just enough after. People now have Armageddon in their hands, and the core rules are available. So like now they can give Age of Sigmar some time on the website for the next couple of weeks until that drops. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
You also heard an interesting rumor about the new preview coming up for the summer, right? When is that? Somewhere in July? The big fatty preview?
I think it's June 27th.
Wow. Okay.
Which is a Saturday. Let me double check that. I know they announced it. Let's see.
I remember seeing at least some kind of video or something about it, saying like, "Hey," and they even called it their own big fatty preview or something.
Yeah, June or July, one of the two. And then, but
maybe they didn't.
Well, they did a banner post of it.
Okay.
But like I said, I don't remember if it was on Instagram or what. But the people who are supposed to be in the know are confirming.
Okay. But while we're actually trying to find something, we were talking about the fact that with 40K getting all of its sort of big yearly edition stuff out of the way here now, even if it's in 2 to 5 weeks, that gives enough time for that to people to get their hands on that stuff and get acclimated to the new edition and start playing, and not really need more previews for 40K. Like maybe it's like, okay, this preview is, we've got 11th edition out of the way already. Let's focus on some of the other stuff that was kind of sidelined while the 11th edition release was in full swing. So the new preview might just be like the other stuff. It might be Age of Sigmar. It might be Total War, not Total War, Old World. It might be like that kind of stuff is what we were hearing.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. One, there's some blurry image going around that's been accompanying this summer preview banner. The blurry image, at least from a color perspective and what we can see, but it's very pixelated, of course, because that leads me to believe about the old leaks, but that's a whole other subject. But this very blurry image, it looks very Slaanesh, but we're getting Heat Knights of Slaanesh already, and we know what model they're getting. Now, that doesn't mean that with the General's Handbook or with some campaign coming up for Age of Sigmar that Heat Knights won't get more because they might. But others speculate that it's some new version of an ogre, and whether that's ogre for Old World or ogre for Age of Sigmar, we don't know yet. But we do know that ogre mod tribes for Age of Sigmar have massive updates coming.
Right.
Apparently, for the other thing that people have discussed for this big fatty summer preview is that the Sons of Behemoth are supposed to get not only a matriarch, but new Man Crusher Gargants.
That's probably good.
So
that ogre or that Gargant kit is not great.
At the time, it was fine.
It's extremely old.
It is.
When did that come out?
And even like scale wise, it's fine, but it's a very old kit. It does make something like 5 or 6 variations of Gargant, but it's possible that kit's going to rotate back to the Old World, and now we're going to get a new one. We've seen newer aesthetics for both Ogres and Gargants in Age of Sigmar, just with other factions. I mean, you had the Hunter that came out for Ogre mod tribes, but then you had these Gate Gargants for cities. And so we've seen some different aesthetics. And so it could be that both of those are going to look very different. But the new Man Crusher, someone just posted like within the last 24 hours, someone says is coming. So that could be a part of this preview. Someone in the rumors claims that it's going to be a preview that either doesn't have any or is very scarce on 40K, because 40K just got so much attention for 11th that they might not be showing off anything new just yet for it. And so now I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know if they've ever had a preview event that didn't include 40K, but if this was all Age of Sigmar and Old World, that could be kind of neat to just do like a dedicated fantasy one. And maybe they're going to do more preview events now that there's so many Warhammer Opens and stuff. So now they can make them a little more focused on which genre. But yeah, the rumor is that it's going to be centered around like Gargants and Ogres as part of the fatty preview.
Oh, I think I did find the kind of blurry picture you were talking about. So the picture looks a little bit like the Lord of Hubris, right? Where he's kind of bare-chested, kind of pompous, standing on a rock, kind of skinny pants, sword and shield, like come at me, bro, sort of pose.
Sure.
If you squint, I mean, this one it looks like he's carrying something, like a big boulder or a menhir or a piece of statue. Like it looks like it could be like the top of a Sigmar statue or something.
Yeah.
That he uses as a weapon, but I still think that is 100% a Gargant. This again, the scale is weird just because it's such a blurry photo. But to me, like again, the rumors for Gargants were that, you know, like I said, Man Crusher mobs and a new matriarch to go along with them. I fully expect to see a complete like redesign of what those ogres are going to look like. Similar to how like Age of Sigmar's city ogres and city Gargants and things like that kind of very drastically changed. And you know, when ogres are getting refreshed, they probably won't have whatever flavor of Eastern European / Asian influence. They're going to kind of lose that. I fully expect these Gargants to get a similar facelift. Facelift because they're fat.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to be these like dumb, beer-bellied, like gaping face, you know, mouth wide open, drooling, like dumb things. I think we're going to see something more sentient than that. You know what I mean? Like we could still have that kit, that old Gargant kit. It could go back to fantasy, and it could be your ale guzzler Gargant, right? He's the big fat guy who's been drinking beer and hanging out with the goblins or whatever. You know, this I think we're going to get a proper refresh in terms of design for Age of Sigmar, and I think it's going to surprise people. And you know, like the fact that we're mistaking this for being, oh, is this actually Slaanesh? Is like that's going to that tells us something, that silhouette of that model looks so different than what we're used to.
Yeah, and
Um,
I saw someone in the rumor saying that whatever this is, if it is for the Gargants, it's gonna the new models are gonna really change the silhouette, the profile of what they look like.
sure.
So maybe that is it.
Yeah. I mean, or that could also be an ogre. It could be an ogre with a hand weapon or a
Yeah,
bomb or a
a
cannon.
rod.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're probably not going to have that style anymore, right? Because why would you keep the old style if you were updating the style? you know.
yeah.
But like I do expect that that's an ogre or a gargant, and um, things going to be very different for them, which I'm all for. Do we know? We don't really know much else, do we?
No, and I'm seeing speculation about the date too. Some think there's some other preview coming like at the end of July. If this one is actually either June 27th or July 4th. I don't know about that. It's hard to know anymore what people think is going to be a preview event or just something they show off on a Monday.
July 4th is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's an American holiday, and so would they want to do it on a holiday weekend? Probably
I mean,
not.
yeah.
I don't know. If you're trying to get viewership, you're trying to get news out, you probably not want to do that on the weekend of like a major summer holiday. For a big portion of your customer base. I mean, maybe you're not thinking about that because you're based in the UK and you're not thinking about holidays in other countries, whatever. But I would assume they're not going to do it on the 4th. Probably the 27th,
Right.
or what's the one after that? The 11th?
I don't know. So yeah.
Hmm.
And so if that is again, so the skeptic in me, if we're not going to make our official predictions yet until they make the announcement of the event, but I assume there will still be something in 40K shown off because I just don't buy they'll ever do a preview event without 40K.
Yeah,
Even
that
if
would
it's
be
just,
insane, right?
even if they're
Zero
just
things for 40K.
right, even if they're just announcing the winner of which codex is going to be first between Marines and Orcs, like it'll be something, which we know it'll be Orcs because everyone's always going to choose the not Marine one to be first. But side note, I like how there are people who think that they actually haven't written them both already or something, and that anyway. But so I'm sure at least something for 40K will be shown. I think something we were hoping for will end up for Old World, and thus I'll be disappointed. Like this Warhammer rumor engine that's been going around that looks more and more like some sort of dragon thing for Chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I
have a
know
feeling
in the rumor forum, it does seem like the account Bool is active again, apparently.
Okay.
And while again, no concrete info, it does seem like they're saying there's a lot of stuff coming for Slaves of Darkness, not Slaves of Darkness, Warriors of Chaos for the old world.
Okay.
And so some of the stuff we're seeing are things like monsters for the Warriors of Chaos in the old world. Manticore, your Chimera, your Mammoth, that kind of stuff. Your Chaos Dragon, maybe a new Knight kit for the old world to update the old plastic Knights kit.
Right. They updated the Norskin part of Chaos already.
Right.
So maybe, but that makes me wonder, what if some of the things people think they're seeing are for Old World and not Age of Sigmar? In terms of like aesthetic changes. I don't know about the lore and if that last world thing's actually real, but like aesthetic changes that people think they're seeing. How do we know it's not for that now?
No,
I've heard
agree.
people say, "Oh, the aesthetic of like you and I were talking the other day. It was like, oh, the aesthetic for Slaves to Darkness might change, and they might get more monsters." It's like that could also be Warriors of Chaos for the old world,
right?
It could be they're getting dragons and.
I mean, we have seen some aesthetic changes, right? Like there have been some updates, making armies more AOS than they used to be. Seraphim, for example, when they got all that Saurus update, like the new Saurus warriors and cavalry and all that, like that was a great update.
Yes,
right?
It was.
Like that very much changed what old Saurus warriors look like, Cold One Riders look like. Very, very different. I mean, we saw a little bit of that with the new Fire Slayer kit that came out. It was an aesthetic update from being just naked dwarves with mohawks and open helmets to like wearing, lizard skin and having full face masks and
Yep.
like that. It was a big aesthetic shift. I do fully expect that any updates we do see in Age of Sigmar will not look like what they used to, because there's no point, right? You might as well update it. We've got better technology, better sculpting, better ideas.
You're designing a
making
new
it more
world
the same
still. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but you're right, like both sides of that setting, the old and the new, could all get aesthetic changes from the old.
Yeah.
Right? It's not necessarily saying, hey, if it's an aesthetic change, it must be for Age of Sigmar. 100% not. Old Norskin Marauders compared to the new Marauders, very big shift in design.
And that surprised me that they did both. They did both Dark Oath and Slaves, and less than a year later did the Norskins in Old World, and those are two very different looking. The Marauders in Age of Sigmar look very like they're wild, they're kicked out of society, they're living off the land, but like slightly primal. And then like the ones in Old World are Northmen, they're Vikings. So now they've given them two different feels. And of course, the Age of Sigmar ones are a little more dynamically posed because they don't have to fit in a box. So like, I don't know, it could, whatever people think is coming, it could definitely be for the Old World and not Age of Sigmar, or vice versa. So
yeah, 100%.
I don't know,
but I do really like the idea of the focus this time around being on some of the stuff that was missed, right?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that's been a little bit lacking in the last months. Kind of shy away from 40K and focus on the other things. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and one other
5 armies to go. That's it.
Yep. One of the rumors said that now that they've announced the General's Handbook, so that means it's 3 weeks from now, this first week will be more, but the last of a bunch of Armageddon and new 40K edition announcements, because next weekend it will officially be in everybody's hands. And then the following 2 weeks might be General's Handbook preview stuff and faction preview stuff for Age of Sigmar. So I look forward to it. I feel like Age of Sigmar, actually every game has kind of suffered the last 8 weeks or so because of the new edition of 40K.
Yeah, just eating up so much of the screen time, so much of the attention. Even when there is another thing showed off, it's just like it's such an afterthought compared to a brand new faction focus for 11th edition. You know what I mean? So yeah,
or they do that thing where it's like first thing in the morning, here's an Age of Sigmar article. It's like, oh, that's neat. It's an update for 3 minutes later, 40K things up.
Yeah, people wake up, they're like, oh, what's the news? And it's already buried, third or fourth article. Yep. Yeah, we'll see.
Do you think they timed, side note, the recent and upcoming Age of Sigmar releases around the new season? And what I mean is the Cog Fort, which is a great big thing, and then Ogres and Sons of Behemoth coming out, and they're going to have a season allegedly themed around monsters and monster hunters. So it makes me wonder, like, was that planned, or is that just working out nice and neat?
At some point, you need to get it out. You time it for new rules versus old rules. Like, I think it's safer to come out with rules that will be compatible with the next bit. You have it in mind at the very least. Maybe the rules that we got for something like the Cog Fort wouldn't have been in its current form if it wasn't so close to a General's Handbook. Maybe they know something about the new edition that we don't, or the new season that we don't. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting. Like, timings are always very interesting to me.
And I think they're getting better at it. I think in the past maybe it was more random, but now I think they try to coincide them not only with changes to the way a game plays, but they also do the thing where now they try to time it alongside the release of a video game or whatever. But yeah, it could be they decided we're going to do a bunch of big fat monster-y stuff right around the time of season about big fat monster-y stuff is going to take effect.
Right. Which, when you think about what's coming, all those factors, like we had said, I think we said last week, all the factions to come could be big monster-y focused armies.
Yep.
obviously the Gargants, but also Seraphim, but also potentially the dwarfs, and then lizard men. That like a lot of those armies focus around having monsters, and so yeah, I mean maybe it's not a surprise that we're going to actually, which is interesting to me that the realm of fire is the focus, and it's going to be monster heavy potentially, and not the realm of beasts. Which is where the monsters should flourish.
Right.
I guess that doesn't really matter too much. But the effect is monster advantage a little bit. I'm actually pleased to see. I hope the game doesn't change too much with this, because when we were looking at tournaments in these last couple weeks, there's some very balanced lists that are like winning tournaments, and you love to see that too.
Oh yeah.
I say that because I hate to see the focus of an entire edition change to be just like, well, it's monsters or nothing,
Right.
because
The armies
like,
that can
you'd like to
pack the
see-
most efficient monsters in their list win. Right.
yeah, because you like to see like, oh, there's some infantry, there's some shooting, there's some artillery, there's some monsters, there's some cavalry, there's some chaff, there's a little
Some
bit of
hero
everything,
hammer, some
you know?
yeah.
Everything in like one army is like nice to see. I don't think having artificial restrictions on what units you're allowed to bring is ever really healthy for a game.
Nope.
Like I'm not a fan of the rule of three. I'm not a fan of like, oh, this detachment can only bring so many of this one war scroll or battle sheet. I think the points need to reflect, and like the rules need to reflect like a natural disincentivization of doing that, right? Like if it's like, hey, your monsters can't like control objectives. How do you win? You control objectives. Means like, yeah, you can bring 6 of the same monster if you want to, but they're not gonna be able to score the game for you.
Nope.
Or like, hey, these 6 monsters all share a special rule that's once per game or once per turn per army. You're not getting the value out of those 6 monsters. You're only getting the value out of 1. I like those kinds of like soft limits.
Yeah,
more
well,
than like a hard.
And one way to do that, you talked about pricing points wise. I think in Age of Sigmar they do that way heavier than they do in 40K. And my example has to do with heroes. In 40K, there are a lot of heroes that are dirt cheap that people in that game would consider expensive. It's like you can get guys who do quite a bit and they're only 110 points, but they do a lot. They fly around, they hide, they hurt things, they buff units. In Age of Sigmar, it's like a hero that does that costs 400 points. And so that is your limit. That is how it's like, well, I can't run 3 of this guy because he costs just way too much. But you still want to run one because his rules are good. It sounds like, not to go back to 40K, but it sounds like GW at least claimed on the Warcom site they're going to try something with this edition, which is to disincentivize spam somewhat. There are going to be some units that are really powerful that they actually cost more once you buy more than one. So the example they gave was like the Defiler. Ever since the new Defiler kit came out, the unit itself got a massive rules glow up, and it's much better. However, to keep people from spamming a bunch of them, it's like after that first one, it cost more to buy another one.
Why not just make them cost more? Anyway, similar thing in Age of Sigmar, right? When you're taking things outside of a regiment, you're bringing them as like an auxiliary unit. They have that auxiliary tax now, just so that you're not just fully building your army outside of detachments. I mean, using points as the limiter is like,
well, it's what Age of Sigmar did to kind of disincentivize spamming was they, like a unit that has a really powerful rule, they simply just put once per army per turn.
Right.
So now if I do buy 3 of them, the points of that special rule are factored into it, but I only get to use it with one unit once per turn. Like, so the other 2 now just don't fulfill that function. That's kind of a way to disincentivize spam too. So I don't know. We'll see which way is ultimately better. We know the rule systems borrow from each other. I don't buy, by the way, the sort of the buzz phrase people use now where they say Age of Sigmar is used as a testing ground for 40K. I think there was probably a time when that was true, but Age of Sigmar is now its own game.
I mean, we've claimed that in the past, that
Well,
it feels like they're testing out some rules as a testing ground. Like,
yeah,
the game isn't such a joke, right? Like, it's a serious game now,
yes.
and it's not, the whole purpose is a beta test, right? That's not the point. But there are some rules that were like, oh, that's new. I wonder if they're going to implement that. Oh, they did. Yeah, they implemented it in 40K.
Yep. But we
After
do also
this,
see it go the other way now, I think, too. And so
Yeah.
I think when one game system does something in a really neat way, they find a version of it to put in the other game, though not identical. It's like, oh, okay, that clearly came from that. But yeah, I even saw that where there were these 40K people talking about the new edition, and then some of this new General's Handbook stuff did end up on the website. And then people were commenting, they were like, I don't play Age of Sigmar. I thought the rules were supposed to be really derpy and simple. This actually looks like there's a lot more going on. It's like, yeah, it's a
where
real
you
game
in
now.
10 years, dude? Like, where you
Yeah.
been? Like,
It's a real game.
but that's the thing, is you only have, what's the saying? You only have one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
And I think Age of Sigmar's first impression was a bad one.
It was.
They didn't take it serious enough. They didn't put enough effort into it. They didn't, plan the release out. They released it instead of this, like, here it is, kind of.
Yeah, they
kind
didn't
of
even tell you had to have
version.
points. You could just build
Yeah.
whatever you wanted.
Just play. Just play two armies versus each other. Well, okay, so how do we balance it? I don't know. Just number of models,
You
number
can
of
do, or
wounds
this
in the
power
army.
level
Just do
number that
whatever you
doesn't mean
want.
anything. Yeah.
Oh, it's like, okay, so here's this power level for the units now. And it's like, oh, interesting. You expect us to play power level 50. If you look at them, that's basically like saying, each power level is worth 40 points, or we're playing a 2,000 point game. Like, it was that. Like, that's
Yeah.
what they tried to do that in 40K as well. When they first got rid of war gear, they tried to do this like power level thing where it's like, yeah, don't even worry about what guns your units have. It's the units this power level no matter what. So a unit full of bolters, a unit full of las cannons, doesn't matter. If it's the same unit, it's the same power level. It's like, that's stupid. That is awful balance.
Stupid. Yeah.
If it's going to be that many power level points or whatever their equivalent was, I'm going to bring the biggest, most powerful, most, effective weapon possible, so that I have, the most effect for my power level points. It's like, why did you think that was going to work?
Well, and then they really they tried to make it stick. There were White Dwarf battle reports. There were Warhammer community articles, and then when they were doing the YouTube channel before they had Warhammer Plus, they had their players saying, their staffers who were playing these games even say, see, you don't need points to have a good game. It was almost like the team at the time was saying, we don't want to have to worry about balancing a game and rebalancing and being granular. And so we're going to do this system that doesn't mean anything. Thankfully, that didn't stick. The community was like, nope. And because even in Age of Sigmar, once they gave us points at all, remember, they were super loose, rounded off to the hundreds always. Even that immediately pushed thousands more people into the game.
They might have been rounded to the nearest 20. It was like, it was bad.
Yeah. It was real bad. Everything started off, it was like everything was 100, 200, 400. But like, even that, though, putting some points immediately drew a lot more people into playing the game. And then they literally said the words without like saying the word when they were doing second edition. It's like, well, I guess people actually want this to be a game, so we're going to try now. And that's so, yes, back then they used Age of Sigmar. It seemed to like test rules for other. Now it's its own game with its own identity that plays its own way. I think they share rules across, or they experiment with rules across. But that was interesting seeing 40K people saying, I didn't realize Age of Sigmar had this many rules. I thought it was supposed to be a not game. It's like, nope. I almost find its rules trickier to learn even than 40K now. I don't know. It's like sequencing in Age of Sigmar is different. And yeah.
Spacing matters a lot more because there's not as many things that can move quickly. There's not as many things that can touch you across the board shooting wise. So line of sight is less important to worry about because there's not a lot of long range guns. If you can get in range to shoot, chances are next turn the enemy's going to be able to get in range to charge you.
Yep.
And so like nothing's safe. The units that shoot are expensive. compared to the melee units, which is the opposite, right? The points for melee and shooting units in 40K are kind of similar. There's there's not a premium for shooting in the game that you probably should have a premium for shooting. But yeah, it's definitely a different game in terms of like where your head's at, and you know, for at least for now, the mechanic of priority on the battle round is still a thing to consider, and so 40K is strictly you go, I go. This game has a little bit of mostly you go, I go, but there could be a time in the middle of the game where I choose to forego my objectives to gain a bigger advantage.
Yep.
Presence on the board. I think it's an interesting thing. It sounds like the next either edition or whatever is considering removing that.
I heard a rumor on a popular Twitch streamer's blog about it that they heard on good authority they might actually get rid of that initiative role in Age of Sigmar that has been there since the beginning. Now, most Age of Sigmar players at this point anyway have embraced it and they plan for it. And they've made it so costly to choose the double turn option now that it's no longer the default. But one of the reasons they might consider abandoning it is they want to attract more players, obviously. But the other thing is they keep designing units and armies with specific rules and specific points cost, but it sounds like they kind of forget about that whenever they're designing it. So they're still designing units the way they've always done for every game without factoring how impactful that rule or something could be if it does get the double turn or whatever. So they don't know how, they're like, well, we don't want to have to rebalance every unit based on that. And so while we've done all these things to try to lessen the impact of the double turn, we might just get rid of that as a thing and come up with a new way to be more interactive. And so when you said earlier that first impressions can go a long way and Age of Sigmar got off to a bad start, I'm not saying the priority role was bad necessarily, but the way it began was very polarizing to the point that you and I know people who now 8 years later still talk about Age of Sigmar as, and that's the last time they played it, by the way. They still talk about Age of Sigmar as though that is what the game is. And that might be something that GW is very aware of. We know they keep tabs on what the community's saying. And so it's possible that's the one of two reasons, or those might be the only two reasons that they're removing it and considering something else. Now, Age of Sigmar, like you said, does have more real-time interaction than 40K in the sense that there are a lot more interruptions you can do, or abilities or stratagem equivalent things that you can do during your opponent's turn or in response to your opponent. And then, of course, melee is actually interactive or interchanging. So maybe they'll keep doing that. Age of Sigmar is a game I think that could pull that off better if they go to a fully interactive. Like, what if they just instead of your turn, my turn, they just did the movement phase.
Right.
But it's
you move, I move.
But it's your turn. Yeah. So you get to move the first unit, right? And then we go from there. But then maybe only you get the shooting phase or something. I don't know. But they might do something like that where it's just a little more interactive.
I could see it.
I never hated the double turn. Like, we've been on both ends of it when we used to do a lot of team tournaments, and it never really won or lost us the game. I know there were some wild stats when specific lists were in where it could be devastating. Like, there were very shooter heavy, like Cunninruck orc lists, or when Lumineth first came out, you'd take just 60 of the bowmen or whatever, and you just bank on going bottom of one, top of two. And when you got that round, you won like 78% of the games or whatever.
Yep. And you'd plan around how your army deployed so that you had fewer drops in your opponent, so you can guarantee priority on the first turn. You would go second. You'd hope to win the priority roll on that next turn. And if you didn't, you'd still go second, right?
So you could get top of three.
Round. So you get top of three. So there was always that persistent threat of it happening eventually. And your army being full shooting and very effective shooting would basically cripple the enemy's army enough, getting those, those two turns in a row, basically, is how it feels, that game would be over on the tail of that. Carriage on Overlords was a big offender of that because not only did they have very, very good shooting, a very effective shooting, but what felt awful was that turn 1 you couldn't get to them. Turn 2 they would shoot you and they'd be very effective. Turn 3 they would shoot you again, or top of 2 they would shoot you again and be very effective. And then when you did get to them, they could retreat out of your combat. On their next turn, so you couldn't even tie them down. So it's like, oh, I finally got to you. I can tie you down. No, I can't. You can just teleport out of combat to be wherever on the board you want to be now. And so it was impossible to tie this army down, and it didn't need melee because it could always get out of combat and still shoot at full effectiveness without any kind of penalty, any kind of limits. Like, it was rough.
And so they essentially had a run where they got 3 shooting phases before you really got to touch their stuff. And that, I don't care what game you're playing, that's really rough. Bad. Well, anyway, the game's very different now. It is very different now. And I think that might be a step they could make. That could be something they do now. And I don't think people would really complain as long as they did it in a way that allowed that part of the turn to still feel interactive.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be fine.
But yeah, so we'll see. Like we said, we know what's coming up for pre-order window. Finally, things are coming back. New stuff's being released. We've got a preview coming up, which is really exciting. Obviously, speculate and give our predictions for what we're going to see there once we have a little bit more info coming up. Closer to it, or even be a second one, like you said, coming up this summer. That's exciting. And I'm sure this next week we're going to see way more about the General's Handbook and what's contained and how things work there. So,
well, and I could see them doing more preview events, if only because, not because they want to not make them special anymore, but some of these rumored releases are big and they don't like to just do like a Monday announcement of an entire army coming out, so like, whatever it is, I feel like they're just maybe going to drop in extra preview events in the summer when there's not other things going on.
What are they going to do? Say, hey, by the way, here's an army refresh. Oh, by the way, here's another army refresh for the same exact game and the same exact preview.
Right.
Oh, by the way, here's more stuff for this other army in the same game with the same preview. And it's a major update. It's like, it would be too much. It would be kind of overwhelming to see 2 army refreshes in a row in the same game for Age of Sigmar, for example. For the same, like, in the same kind of a window and like major army, like, oh my God, they wouldn't do that.
They do it for the launch of a new edition, and that's about it. So like, I agree with how many rumors we have of Age of Sigmar stuff. It's like there's no way they're going to pack it all in. So maybe there is another one coming in the summer. I don't know. As to the General's Handbook, I might be interested for the first time in buying, what do they call the special one, the Warlord edition or whatever. It comes with like a turn and stat tracker thing with markers and whatever. It's like just a little extra. I don't know. I might actually get that this time.
The Warlord edition? Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
So basically it's got one of those kind of cardboard, it's like a battle tracker board that will show you number of victory points per battle round. It stores your battle tactics. It helps keep track of the game, right?
Because the Warhammer games have bookkeeping. They do.
Yeah, they do. There's nothing you can do about it, right? Scratch paper, app, dice, whatever you use to keep track of stuff in the game, it's going to have bookkeeping. This one seems very, very simple. It's very simple, but very specific to this General's Handbook. And so you can throw out you punch out your little cards of like what your tactic is going to be this turn and make sure you've got it set aside so you don't forget which one you've chosen, that kind of thing. And then, like I said, number of victory points, you tally it up as you go, so you don't forget.
Well, and then a little aesthetic thing. The cover art they chose was one of those blinded. Is it one of the Cities of Sigmar battle wizard or priest, or is it
I forget specifically what he's called, but it's an Axian fire mage.
Got it. Okay.
For Cities of Sigmar. Yeah.
I love the blind theme. I don't know why. That's a neat little choice they've made for some of those, for that army.
Almost like harnessing the wind, either blinds you to the real world, or you need to deprive yourself of being able to see the real world in order to see what the wind of magic is showing you.
Right.
Something like it's I don't know. I
Aesthetically, the
also
models look
agree.
really cool, but
I've also loved that aesthetic where like
yeah,
you know you're blind but not impaired. You know,
yeah.
like the
It's like
blindness is not a detriment to you.
right. It's like the Frank Dukes training in Bloodsport kind of thing, right? You got to put the
Yeah.
blindfold on and hit the guy, or dodge the guy. I like that theme, and that's really new. That theme, and with cities, they just like kind of injected a whole bunch of it at once. But I do like that. I'm super excited for a shakeup to the game. If it's going to be as big as they say, this is going to be the season we get, I think, until the new edition comes out. So they might just let people kind of turn it loose here, or cut it loose and go nuts. Yeah, so I'm excited to get that and get some games in with the new look, the new stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and if it comes alongside a preview of goodies, I mean, nothing wrong with that. I actually think my last
love me some
handbook,
goodies.
I think my last Journal's Handbook is still wrapped in plastic, unfortunately.
I'm not. That does not super surprise me.
No, because I always buy it. That might not be
a
true.
lot of stuff going on the last couple of years,
I did, but I might have opened it to get the code to update my app. That's about it. Otherwise, I don't think I ever looked at it. It still would like creak if I tried to open it. Yeah, I don't know. But it was really cool. Like I got to talk to a lot of people about that when I was teaching this last weekend. It was good to see. Now there were some people who were just brand new, who had never done minis ever, but decided to show up to this, and that was cool. But a lot of the people were talking about, just as many were talking about the updates to Age of Sigmar as they were to the 40K 11. So at least locally, we've got quite a community. So yeah,
sure.
They were running some sort of grand tournament this weekend for 40K. Yeah, didn't get to watch it, but yeah, cool. Last Raw 10th edition.
Yeah, exactly. It's your last course, on your 10th edition meal. It's a little dessert, little cherry on top.
And it's rarely disappointing, right? When everything's gone good. Well, actually, when it's gone good or bad, you're almost stuffed. Here comes the dessert course. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, I can finish with that.
Speaking of, though, I'm getting pretty hungry. So,
slice of cheesecake. Just
exactly.
Thin.
Not much. That's all you need.
Not a bunch of toppings on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's when we go eat.
All right, let's eat.